Welcome back to the gospel. I am your host, Zay, the fantasy football fiend himself. I hope you guys have had an excellent week. I have my guy, the man, the myth, BK wins. How let the people, BK?
Hey y'all.
We have quite a bit to talk about this week. Most of it is going to be surrounding the state of NFL, college football, and some of the goings on as far as those two sports are concerned. And there's a couple other things will sneak in there, a little bit of NBA action, things of that nature. But I want you guys to remember we are now on YouTube at the Gospel STP. Again, that's the Gospel STP. And if you haven't joined the Facebook group, we are also on Facebook, and you get a lot more information, a lot more access. It's a huge community there, and we are growing it daily. So please come and hop on board there. That's the Gospel Sports Truth. And just click the little magnifying glass, type that in, and you'll see the emblem. Go ahead and hop right on. With that being said, BK, we got a lot to talk about. So let's go ahead and get started, man. What's a good word for the week?
So, big win for the Eagles over the Ravens this past weekend. Are the Eagles now legit Super Bowl contenders? And how would you rank them in your personal power rankings?
So for me, the Eagles are what I thought they were at the beginning of the season. I don't necessarily see them as Super Bowl contenders as much as I see them as a NFC top dog contender. But the Super Bowl is going to come out of the AFC. I don't really care which team comes out of the NFC, to be honest with you. And as far
So,
as power rankings are concerned, I would probably have the Eagles behind Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, Detroit, and probably Pittsburgh as well. So I would have them somewhere around 6 or 7, depending.
so for me, I definitely think they're Super Bowl contenders. Um, their defense, they have a top three defense in the NFL. Um, their offense, especially now that they have Barkley, is really clicking. To be able to stop the RPOs with Hertz and Barkley and AJ Brown, they're very difficult to deal with right now. So prior to this week, I had my top three as the Chiefs, Lions, and Bills. I've now moved. I've now moved the Eagles into the number three spot ahead of Buffalo. That's not to discount the beating that they gave um, the Niners the other week, the shorthanded Niners in Buffalo in the Blizzard. But the Eagles are a better defensive team than Buffalo, and they've actually proven they can win a Super Bowl. Buffalo's still they're having a great regular season, and I give them credit for that. Talk to me when you do something in the playoffs. The Eagles have won a Super Bowl. That matters. Winning matters. And again, I haven't seen it from them. So I would put them number three. I think they are the second best team in the NFC behind Detroit, who's been just phenomenal. Minus the second half mini collapse they tried to have against the Bears. Um, but I just feel like they're very difficult to deal with.
I mean, I can see where you're coming from. I just, I guess I still have that taste in my mouth from last year where everything was great, and then there was just this letdown. And I've seen Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde this year from them, and I just don't. They're the NFC version of the Bengals to me. Your team is talented enough to win a Super Bowl, sure, but I just I I don't feel as if this is the year for all things to come together. But that's kind of the comparison that I would have from one conference to the other, though. What we got next?
So I'm going to call myself out on this because, as fans of these two teams, I never would have thought this would have happened. What's more impressive? Your one of your favorite teams, the Denver Broncos, led by Sean Payton, who I know you love and adore, on the verge of the playoffs, and they're likely going to get it done, or the Commanders making the playoffs, because I didn't have either one making the playoffs, to be honest. I'm thrilled to death they have a chance, but
I no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I'm good.
I didn't have either one of them in the playoffs either. To your point, they really came out of nowhere, but the Broncos were better last year than what people want to say they were. Um, I don't feel like the Broncos were building from the ground up, if that makes sense. There was some sort of a foundation there, if you will. I feel like the Commanders were starting from ground zero, and to go from that to the playoffs in year one, if it is to happen that way, I think that's a little bit more impressive. If you ask me which team is constructed in such a way that you're more likely to be able to sneak up on someone in the playoffs, I'm gonna get up to the Broncos. Um, their defense is outstanding. They have an offense that travels. They have a quarterback that can run. He's not a runner, but he can run. The thing about that is with Jaden, he won't run nearly as much as Jaden Daniels, so he wouldn't be putting himself in the line of fire nearly as much. And they really have a connection there with that running game, and also with the connection between Bo Nix and Cortland Sutton. So that's kind of how I would look at it. But the Commanders, for me, is the one that is most shocking, if you will.
Yeah, both teams play in really tough divisions. With the people expected the Eagles and the Cowboys to have good years. At least a lot of people did. Me, not very high on the Cowboys, but high on the Eagles. Um, and obviously, with the Chiefs and the Chargers in the AFC West, that's a tough. We knew the Raiders would be bad, but this was, both teams had some hurdles in their division. Um, I think if it were me, I'm more surprised about the Broncos for a couple of reasons. They play in the tougher conference, and the AFC is tougher to navigate for sure than the NFC. And then I think the other part is I was confident Jaden Daniels would be everything we thought he would be. I don't know of anybody who thought Bo Nix was going to be good.
Okay,
Um,
okay,
And, and so, now Denver has the advantage of a much better home field advantage and a much better defense.
yeah,
But, to your point, they were better set up for this. But before the season, color me skeptical that Bo Nix was going to be the answer. But in year one, he's already proven and shown that he will be the guy there, and he's only going to get better, much like Daniels. And the benefit for both these teams, rookie quarterback contracts, means you can load up that team.
facts, facts. These are all facts, my guy.
So it wouldn't be us if we didn't talk a little Carolina football. And so the cardiac Carolina kids did it again. They escaped one set of Tigers, Mizzou, and they beat them with a fantastic drive to win that game. And as an encore performance, they went on the road and scored the last 10 to beat their bitter rival, the Clemson Tigers, 17-14. They've won their sixth straight game after 3-3, now 9-3. Is Carolina playoff worthy?
No, and it's due to circumstance. if I let Carolina into the playoffs, I'm gonna have to let like 5 SEC teams, like six, maybe 6 out of the 12 spots in. Um, if I let Carolina in, I gotta let, well, obviously Texas, Georgia. I want to say Ole Miss was up there. Um, Tennessee, uh, Bama has the same record as them. Like 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 if I open up that chasm, then I have to go, well, to the, well, they, whether they rank within the SEC itself. So if you let them in, you got to let all these teams within that. It would take up all the at large bids at that point. Because you got the Power Five champions will be the top five. So from 6 to 12, it'll be basically who the committee deems as being worthy, and it would literally take up all the spot. It would defeat the purpose of having a 12 team, because it's still all SEC as far as probability based on the amount of teams that are in. That's not their fault, but that's just my outlook on it. I do like where they where they have ascended to. We also got to take into account within this 9-3 record. I want to say within those first couple of games that they lost, there was a game that they probably shouldn't have lost to Alabama. One game, the quarterback got hurt. Like this could easily be right now an 11-win team. If that were the case, you'd have no argument out of me. But you are just opening up the floodgates if you let Carolina in, because it's you've now completely taken away what could have been in this type of a playoff system, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely see that for sure. I mean, for me, so I'm going to float around a couple of terms that many people use when it comes to evaluating playoff teams. So, deserving, right? Or do they really belong? Are they most deserving, or do we want them to be there? Look, as a Carolina fan, I don't hide the fact I would love to see them make the playoffs. It would be really exciting to see this young team with this electric quarterback and that defense play in the postseason, meaningful postseason. However, what I've noticed on different social media posts is that people like to change the narrative or conveniently leave out bits and pieces when it's not convenient for the argument. We'll talk about Carolina being hot down the stretch. They beat some ranked teams. But before the season started, we weren't even sure Beamer was going to have a job, keep his job. He was on the hot seat. He started out 3-3, barely beat Old Dominion, and was 3-3 at the halfway point. We're like, I'm not sure that this is going to be an option for them moving forward. Then they catch lightning a bottle and they crush A&M and they crush Oklahoma. Here's the other thing that, and it's been a while since I made this reference, but here it is. It's something my dad always taught me about sports. You want to control your own destiny. You don't want to leave it in the hands of somebody else. And the fact of the matter remains, people want to compare Bama and Ole Miss that are also 9-3 SEC teams. Well, yes, Carolina has the better resume. Yes, they are hotter. Yes, all those things are true. But when Bama played South Carolina, who won? When Ole Miss came to Columbia and played the Gamecocks, who won? Oh, not only did Ole Miss win, but the game was over at halftime. Ole Miss absolutely destroyed them in a non-competitive game on the road. Now, you can say, well, that was 6 weeks ago. They're a different team now. That's great, but we can't pick and choose when we ignore things. At the end of the day, they could have, should have beat Alabama and didn't. And while Carolina, and I'm going to say we as a fan, We lost our quarterback Sellers in the home game against LSU, and people want to blame the refs. Here's the deal. Playoff teams don't blow 17-0 and 24-10 leads at home. Sorry, you can't just overlook the fact that you blew 2 double-digit leads. Had you not blown those leads, you're in the playoffs at 10-2. But guess what? You didn't, and we can't just overlook that fact. I would love them to be there. They're not deserving of being in there, and especially when they're grouped with Bama and Ole Miss who beat them head-to-head, you can't just bypass them because it's convenient.
Agreed. Now,
Now,
BK, um, yeah, so we got to get some reactions in here to our Buckeyes falling to that school up north again. This makes 4 years straight. And I've been just waiting with bated breath to know what your feelings on this situation were going to be. I feel as if my feelings for the situation have been out there for months, even years at this point. So you go ahead and get it off your chest first.
there's a lot to say. I'm going to start with the simple things. I've said this before, players are a reflection of their leadership. Coach Day has dropped the ball repeatedly in several areas. I'm going to start with the obvious part. When you're the head coach, you set the tone. You cannot come out in these rivalry games or any game and be tight. You have to play fast, aggressive, and confident. You can't be afraid of the outcome. You can't worry about what happened the last 3 years. You have to be confident. He talks, he sounds, his body language, he coaches tight. Secondly, for all the talented roster that they have, how do we not address the offensive line? You win and lose games in the trenches. They're not particularly strong on either side of the ball on the O-line or D-line. That's a problem. Number 3, I understand that the team who has had more rushing yards has now won 23 straight years in the game. And I understand games are won or lost at the line of scrimmage. And I understand that ever since Lou Holtz called out the Buckeyes as being soft, Ryan Day has gone out of his way to try to prove that they're not soft. Here's the deal. They're a finesse team. They're a passing team. They've struggled to run the ball all season against any team that's good. And that's not suddenly going to change. The strength that they had against this game, against Michigan, was to spread them out and throw the ball, particularly with Jeremiah Smith and Ibuka, and wear them out. And especially, by the way, Michigan was missing their All-American corner in Will Johnson. Spread them out, throw the ball. Do you know what excuse? And for the record, when did the Buckeyes offense look best in this game? Oh, yeah, it was a 2-minute drill when they had to throw the ball and they played up tempo. And I listened to the press conference wondering what gem Coach Day was going to say about this. And he said, well, it's hard to get into a rhythm and go up tempo when you're struggling to move the ball. Well, guess what? When you run, pass on first, second, third down on every possession, everybody in the stadium knew what was coming on first, second, and third down. Run, pass. By the way, what is Michigan's strength? Oh, yeah, their run defense, particularly up the middle. So you're playing into that team's strength. Again, Coach Day should have been fired before this season. You had him fired well before the season, so I give you credit for being ahead of the curve. I would have fired him after the last season. For sure, he can't survive this season. And I know people out there are going to say he's 47-1 in the Big Ten, but here's the deal. In the only game that truly matters in Cleveland and Ohio, it's the game up north. You're 1-4, you've lost your last four, and you blew it as a 23-point favorite, which is probably one of the worst losses for the Buckeyes in the rivalry.
It is the worst.
They haven't beaten Michigan since 2019. So now, and to go to the other side of it, look at Michigan. They had a mediocre year all year. They finally got bowl eligible against Northwestern the week before. What's funny about this is Ohio State now 10-2 and 10-1 prior to that loss last weekend. Their season is already deemed a failure because they couldn't win the game and they didn't play in the Big Ten title game and they're not going to win the conference. Michigan feels great because they lost 15 starters from last year's national title team, changed all these players, changed their coach, changed all these pieces parts, and they won the game and they're 7-5. He needs to be fired. He needs to go.
This is probably the worst thing you could ever say about a team after a loss of this magnitude, but I have to say it. At this point, BK, it's par for the course. It's the norm. Like that. I mean, one, okay, a fluke. Two, could be a fluke, maybe a trend. Three, we need to make some changes here. Four, and for sure, that particular instance, your team was heads and shoulders better. It's not the talent on the field. It has to be something else. I get it's difficult to see from an outside looking in type of a situation, depending on what school you may root for. It's like, what? Y'all are crying over a guy that has gotten double digit wins like every single season. I understand why you don't understand. I do. But if you don't beat that school, unless I'll give a caveat. You can keep your job, and I won't be as mad about you losing to that school as long as you win the championship. Other than that, all bets are off. I don't know that Chip Kelly, especially being the OC. Now, one thing that Ryan Day said previously is Chip Kelly makes the calls, but at the end of the day, he's the one that gives the seal of approval, or it says that well, no, we're going to go a different direction. So I don't know if some of these offensive woes or some of these darts and venom that we may have, if that should go the way of Chip Kelly as well. I've never seen him run this vanilla of an offense anywhere else in his career, which is why I would say that this feels a little bit more like Day than it does Kelly. But I do know that Chip Kelly is capable of running a high caliber, quote unquote, name brand school. And at this point, I'd rather push my chips into the table, understanding that surely because of the talent that you can recruit at Ohio State, even if you take a step back at coach, your win-loss record can't go down but by so much. And whoever the next coach is can't lose to Michigan more than Ryan Day has. Humble estimation. So I'm frustrated, and I'm ready to turn the page, but barring an unforeseen championship coming our way this season.
Yeah, I mean, here's the deal, right? Chip Kelly has been aggressive everywhere he's been. So clearly, Day is controlling that and telling him you're going to play conservative. There's no way that Chip Kelly would have done that. And then, secondly, we both know. I mean, what have you seen from the Buckeyes all year that tells you they're going to win the title? They're not going to win the national title. Um, and so, mostly because, A, their coaching, their offensive line issues, but also their quarterback is mediocre. So, you're not going to win a championship with him at quarterback. So, that's the other part of it. I don't think they're good enough on offense at this point to win the title. So, um, but think about this is why it makes it so awful. We all remember the John Cooper 2-9-1 years against Michigan. But Tressel and Urban went 15-1. So to go 1-4 and lose four in a row at that
Unacceptable.
is it just can't happen. It can't happen. Well, rounding out the college football piece, Zay, I was curious. It's conference title time, and there's a few games, and just wanted to kind of get your thoughts. Of course, the SEC showdown, the rematch, Texas takes on Georgia. Oregon takes on Penn State, thanks to the Buckeyes' loss to Michigan. SMU, you might have heard me talk about them for 2 months. The Pony Express heads to Charlotte to take on Clemson. And of course, Arizona State and Iowa State in a Big 12 showdown. Who do you got in these games? What do you think? Tell the people what's on your mind.
Big game, big weekend of football coming. Um, One of the reasons I'm loving this new playoff system is because there aren't all these gaps in football. It's just football until there's no more. So give me that. Texas, Georgia. I am going Georgia. I think you give Kirby Smart another shot at that Texas team. He'll have figured out a few things, and Georgia will come out on top there. Oregon, Penn State, Oregon. Not a whole lot to say about that game. SMU, Clemson, SMU. Clemson feels good there because of the name, not because of necessarily the team that they've been last year, this year. Arizona State versus Iowa State. Give me Iowa State. The Cyclones always pull a rabbit out of the hat some kind of way. And it has happened against better schools than Arizona State. So that's where I'm at for the weekend.
Well, so for me, I'm only going to talk about Arizona State, Iowa State here because the rest I'll discuss a little bit in more detail later. Um, but I like the Sun Devils here. They've been a cover machine. They've been good at making me money. And again, I'm not betting on this game because I really do, to your point, think he can go either way. I'm not confident on this, but my gut tells me that Arizona State finds a way. I think they're a little bit more complete team than Iowa State, but I expect this to be another good game and really tight. And it's also going to screw somebody out of a playoff spot because neither one is in the top 12 currently, and the winner is guaranteed to make the playoff. So Bama and Miami are on definitely on the bubble, so they need to be. In Miami being 12 is at most risk. But anyway, those are my thoughts on that.
But those situations are some of the situations that I'm looking most forward to kind of peeling back the layers on because there are going to be teams such as this matchup that the winner is now going to hop from not being in the playoffs from the committee's eyes to being a top five team in the playoffs. So that dynamic is going to be very, very fascinating. And how does a team that didn't play all of a sudden lose favor in sight of the like? They're going to have to do some work. I just I can't wait to talk about that after it's done. But yeah, that's where I am as far as this weekend is concerned. Moving right along to our truth and nothing but the truth. What we got first, BK?
So, why do you think both NFL and college head coaches seem to struggle so much with game management at the end of the game and even at the end of the first half?
I believe that the same as with athletes in various sports. Sometimes, if your head isn't in the game, or the moment is too bright, or you just don't have it in you to have the wherewithal to be able to be two steps ahead versus just concentrating on the one thing that's in front of you, because it feels like that's what actually happens. They're focused so much on whatever that singular thing is that those 10, 15 seconds that could have won or lost the game, that's not even calculating because I'm singularly focused on this one thing. So I just kind of see it as it's kind of like a pitcher having the yips, like because it's normally the same coaches. Just why I say that. Like the coaches that don't have an issue with it don't all of a sudden get to a game that has so much pressure that it just shows up out of nowhere and it's never been an issue before. It tends to be a pattern with certain coaches. So I kind of think sometimes maybe the moment is too big or too much on their plate and don't know how to delegate. That could literally be someone's job. Like you're the time management guy. That's all I want you to worry about the entire game. Maybe give that duty to the get back guy, the guy that pulls the coach back if he runs out on the field. Tell him to you have two jobs. Make sure I don't get a penalty for being out on the field and making sure I understand where we are as far as that clock is concerned. But I just, that's the only thing that I can come up with. That's the old saying, pressure bust pipes, and coaches get their deer in the head like uh, sort of a look or feel as well as athletes do. So.
Yeah, I think for me, the thing that to me makes it inexcusable are a couple things. One, you're literally paid to be the CEO of the team. Like, that's your main job. You have coordinators to do everything else. Now, obviously, the final decision is yours, but your main thing is, hey, do I burn a timeout because we're going to take a delay game and it's going to put us behind the sticks and it's a big play? We need to use the timeout.
Yep.
Or, getting plays in quickly, making sure things run smooth. We don't have too many guys on the field, making sure we're paying attention to that. Is communication up to snuff? But then at the end of the game, when to use timeouts, when not to use timeouts, what is our strategy? We practice this all week before the season, during the practice, during the bye week. Like, you can't forget to call timeout. Or, the example, the other one, because we've already talked about the Bears debacle on Thanksgiving Day and how awful that was. One play in 30 seconds just can never happen, especially when you have a timeout. Even if you don't have a timeout, it can't happen, but particularly when you have one and don't use it. But I'm going to talk about Clemson for a second because as much as I was grateful and thankful that Carolina won that game, I really feel it was more that Clemson lost it for two reasons. One, they had a 14-7 lead after three quarters, and at home, they're usually pretty good when they have a lead after three quarters. But number two, they drove all the way down into easy chip shot field goal range, and Klubnik, they had the field goal. If the guy's wide open, then take your shots. But you have to be coached and told you cannot force any throws. You cannot turn a sack or a turnover cannot happen. Anything else is okay. But he threw an ill-advised throw across his body to the middle of the field, and it got picked off. Now, granted, the guy made a hell of a play, but you cannot do that. Take the field goal. Worst case, go to overtime with that crowd. You can't lose the game because you did something stupid. Don't be a hero. And this all comes back on coaching. The coaching has to sit there and tell you, don't force the ball, don't take a sack, be mindful of the time. Score time situation. I learned that at 5 years old. Why millionaires don't understand this, I'll never know.
So, has the playoff committee gotten the rankings right so far? And if not, which teams would you kind of be upset about as far as where they're currently ranked?
So, I mean, I think, in my opinion, so far, I think the committee's done a pretty good job. I don't really have any glaring issues with what they've done. I do think that they've set themselves up for some trouble because, to use one of their favorite terms, there's a cluster of teams at the bottom where, should SMU lose, then you got SMU at 8, you have Miami at 12, you have Bama at 11, you have a couple teams that are going to come potentially from outside of the top 12 to get a playoff berth. For example, if UNLV beats Boise State, they jump from 19 into the playoff. We also have a situation where we talked about Clemson. They're outside of the top 15 and they'll be in the playoff. They control their own destiny. So I'm concerned, knowing the committee, I'm concerned that they will have opportunities to do the wrong thing. I understand that Miami, I have friends that are Canes fans, and to their credit, they've all told me they don't belong to be in the playoffs. They don't have any marquee wins. Their best win is against Florida and Louisville, who are both mediocre teams. They didn't play the two top teams in the ACC in Clemson and SMU. They lost to two mediocre teams on the road. But in most people's minds who watch the games, they're a two-loss team that really has four because the refs screwed Va Tech in that one game. And then they came from 3 touchdowns down to escape by 1 point against Cal in what I like to call ACC after dark. So, and the other part is Miami's competing against SEC teams, and I know I'm going to lose you when I say this, but when you're playing the SEC schedule, this Miami team would struggle to be bowl eligible running the gauntlet that they had to. To me, they're no different than Oklahoma, who in the Big 12 ran through it and then got crushed in the SEC this year. Miami can't, they don't have coaching, they don't have a defense. Even as good as their offense is, I don't see it. That's just me. How do you feel about it?
Well, we're on the same page, but we're not on the same sentence. Uh, Here's the thing for me: the biggest difficulty the committee is going to have, let's say, like, to your point, if in SMU loses, should you punish me to the point of being out of the playoffs because I made it to a championship game that the people that you're going to allow to come in didn't even get to? Like, how do you let the Miamis of the world, the Bamas of the world, everyone in that cluster that did not make it to their conference's championship game, how do you let them leapfrog a team that you penalize so much for making it to a championship? Like, it's different if I was already behind you
Mm-hmm.
and I make it to the championship and I lose. But if I was in front of you and I play a decent game and I lose in a championship game, and now you're better than me, that's a tough pill to swallow. But if it doesn't work out that way, that means that before we even start championship weekends, unless you happen to be Clemson or UNLV, there's no path to you not being in the playoffs as long as you make the championship game. So it's going to be interesting the way that they break it down and what they say they use to come up with the logic that made the finalizations. But there's some pitfalls that I can say, well, if 1 plus 1 equals 2, then this and this should have happened and something completely different happened. There's opportunities on both sides for it to be a, oh, okay, I can see that, or a what in the world just happened, and is this all about Vegas and big brand and nothing else? Or the wins or losses this weekend are gonna can either open up Pandora's box, or it can go ahead and make sure that Hoover Dam is nice and safe and sound and sealed and shit because the numbers will work themselves out. So that's kind of where I am as far as this is concerned.
No, I'm with
Um,
you.
what we got up next?
So we talked about a little bit earlier in our reaction to the game, but what's causing the Buckeyes and Coach Day to keep falling short against the team up north? Who's to blame, and how can it be fixed?
Um, it's interesting because, to put it succinctly, the team that attempts to do something different to beat the other team isn't playing their game. And it seems as if under Coach Day, anytime we play Michigan, we go into that game trying to do what we feel can beat them versus getting on the field and doing what we do best and letting the chips fall where they may. So to put it in as simple of a terms as I possibly can, we always try to beat them instead of trying to be the best version of us, and that formula has not worked. One or two things can fix it. Either Coach Day is let go, or it's Chip Kelly's offense and Day has no say so over it. And maybe that's the direction they take so that he can keep his job another year instead of them having to pay out the $36 million buyout. Maybe it's a, okay, this is what I'm going to take away, but this is how it'll benefit you. And maybe that's the conversation. Outside of that, it'll just be more of the same. Like 4 years in a row, that's not a happenstance. That's what it is.
I know you're sitting down, buddy, so this is going to shock you. I said a lot in the earlier part of this, so I'm going to say something very concisely.
Huh?
Day must go. It's not going to change until he changes, and the only way to change, since he clearly won't, he needs to be fired. Absolutely fired. There is no excuse for what he's doing. He continues to sabotage things. And I'll go one step further. And I don't normally say something like this. Don't get me wrong. I'd let the coaches coach the game, call the defensive and offensive game plan. But Ohio State would have won had I been the head coach on Saturday. Because this team would have been playing fast, confident, and aggressive, and they would have been put in a situation where they trust they were going to have the best chance to win, not try to run the ball 30 times unsuccessfully. You have to be aggressive. You can't be afraid of the moment, and you have to come out and not only win that game, but embrace that moment and go out there and crush their souls. That doesn't happen. End of story. Goodbye.
On the same page as you, BK. It's I've been calling for it for years now, like literally. Since,
Listen, I'll even take
since
some
the second
PTO
loss,
and drive him to the airport. I'll
I'm,
drive him to the airport.
he'll be on a lot of people's short list, I'm sure, and more power to him.
Yeah. He can go somewhere else where there's no expectations and go 9-3 there.
Maybe they take him at Penn State because I'm sure they're getting tired of Franklin.
I guess that might be the one way that Penn State could beat Ohio State, or at least.
I mean, it's some teams out there. It's some teams out there. What we got up
Well,
next?
so I've been very curious, as a resident Laker fan, what you're going to say about this, because I know how excited you were to get Redick, or more specifically, not have Darvin Ham.
Mm-hmm.
But through the first 22 games, Darvin Ham 13-9, JJ Redick after a 3-0 start, and even a 10-4 start, now 12-10. How are you feeling about the Lakers, and why are they struggling after such a fast start?
Well, simply put, you can be one of the more talented teams in that cream rise to the top. But when you have to utilize your most talented at a rate that's higher than most, they're going to get dinged up, burn out um, a lot quicker than what you would see on other teams that can kind of go a little bit deeper on the bench. There's some other things going on too. I don't know what happened on the plane ride from Miami to LA, but Gabe Vincent looks like he should be in the G League at this point. We're still trying to get rid of Russell. We we've been trading for a big man for 3 years. There's there's several things that until those things are fixed, like I feel like we have more of an identity now. I feel like we have more of an action. I feel like we're actually running offensive plays. We're in a position to be successful. You got people like Vanderbilt that I don't think he's played I don't think he might as well be Ben Simmons at this point. Like I'm pretty sure he hasn't played 10 games in 3 years. So there's several players that per the money we should be able to count on that we haven't been able to. And then I mean our second best player is 40 years old. Like that's that just is what it is. Like for you to think that a guy that is often hurt and a guy that is 40 years old are going to take the rest of the motley crew deep into the playoffs or a championship, well, I think that kind of shows where your thought process led you as far as wins and losses this year. Not talking to you, BK, but just saying in general. And I just the Lakers aren't going to be very good until they can really start over as far as the salary cap is concerned. And another superstar that we actually have the money to be able to pay wants to play next to AD because we're no longer paying LeBron. And it's going to have to be two. They could, moreover than that, we've had the money as of late. The Lakers have been having New England Patriot problems. I got the money, nobody don't want to take it. That's the issue that the Lakers have been. So that's what needs to be the perception of the team has to be turned around. And I think a little bit of that is happening, but it's going to be a process. It's going to be gradual, and there's a reason that I believe JJ Redick will outlast LeBron. I think he's already showing that he's right. He's a good fit for the team, but the GM gotta we gotta do better. Gabe Vincent theoretically should have been a good move. It didn't work out that way. Like there are a few guys that it really should have been if they could have stayed healthy, if they played close to what they did when they were where they were before they came to us. But for whatever reason, it's just LeBron is my GOAT, but I don't think the Lakers can be fixed until there's a LeBron size contract off of the books, and we can really like revamp things from the floor up to and including AD and maybe getting 4 stars for the 2 that we gave up money wise. I think there'll be plenty of people willing to go to LA once they don't have to feel like they're going to be in anyone else's shadow. Like that's still someone's dream. Several people, but they just don't want to be caught up in the hoopla that we know we aren't an upper echelon team, but you looking at us like we are based on honestly one player. That's LeBron.
So I think that Reddick's shown that he's a much better coach than Darvin Ham. They're better organized. He's a better communicator. The rotations are better. The issue that I have with the Lakers is what I've been saying now for 2 years. It's a talent issue. You know, AD is great. LeBron is great when they both play. Austin Reeves is a solid player. I like the rookie Dalton Knapp.
Yeah, yeah.
Outside of that, this team has no talent. And LeBron's old. And I know he's been playing well for the most part, but during this slide, he's been bad. 0 for 20. He missed 20 straight threes. Point totals 12, 16, 18, 10. If he's scoring under 20 points, this team isn't winning. I mean, and I'm not blaming him for this. Let me be clear. He's not the problem. But at this point, given the talent deficiency this team has, he has to be the solution every night. He can't have bad nights because they rely on him and AD to be great all the time. That's not his fault. That's not an AD fault. It's not a Redick fault. To your point, it's a front office fault because I don't know what Kupchak does. Clearly not a whole lot because you've been trading for big men for 3 years and nobody wants to play there. And I mean, look, at the end of the day, personally speaking, you want to fire Ryan Day all the time, and I'm not mad at you for that. I would have fired the GM 2 years ago because Kupchak can't get it done. And he's proven he can't get it done because his team stays the same.
I think the reason why the GM won't go is Jeannie Buss is looking at the fact that this GM did 2 things that no one thought that he would be able to do, which is bring in LeBron James and bring in AD. All the other mistakes are thrown under the rug because those 2 things were made to be. So
that makes sense. I'm with you on that.
all right. Top 5 all time of something. Today, we're actually going to stay in the sports vein. NBA shooting guards. Yeah, this one should be interesting. I got a feeling that some of our answers will be the same, but then some will be. I might have a couple of guys that aren't on your list, and vice versa. Let's start out with your number five. Who you got?
Number five, Clyde the Glide Drexler. He was a physical specimen, terrific athlete, had a tremendous career. So I have Drexler number five. How about you?
I got to roll with the beard, James Harden. Like we talk about his lack of rings and lack of continuity and things of that nature on the team, but I mean he was his team for some years. I mean, put up astronomical numbers. I don't think he gets his flowers, but he'll definitely be a Hall of Famer. Number five for me is James Harden. Number four for you,
For me, number four, um, AI,
AI.
Allen Iverson. You know, for a guy that size to be able to dominate a game like he could is absolutely phenomenal. And he deserves, I personally don't think in NBA circles, he gets all the credit he deserves. But from a fans in general, I don't think he gets the credit he deserves. He was terrific. So I have him number four.
The rest of our answers either match or are flip flop. So three and four for me are Allen Iverson three, Dwayne Wade is my number four. You had Iverson as your number four, Dwayne Wade as your number three. Yeah. Um, but what you said is the reason that I have AI over D Wade. He was able to take over the game, but didn't have the physical attributes that a D Wade had to be able to dominate the game. He did it without that and had the same amount of athleticism, led his team the same way that a D Wade did. Um, so yeah, like impact on the game. I feel like AI has a much bigger impact on the game. Everybody loves D Wade, but everybody wanted to be AI. Like it's a difference. It's levels. But that's where I am on that. So our number one and our number two are the same. Go ahead and put them out there.
So number two, your favorite player, Kobe Bryant, the late
Absolutely.
great Kobe Bryant.
Absolutely.
Um, what I love about Kobe is he made the game look so easy and effortless. Obviously, we all know about the Mamba mentality, the five titles, and all of that. But his ability to score from any position on the floor at any time, and he was an assassin. And so I he rest in peace, but he is very deserving of all the accolades and praise he's ever gotten. He's a special, special, special player.
MJ at number one. A lot of people's GOAT, regardless of position. I don't think it was any competition for most people between MJ and Kobe. With Kobe being my favorite player and me being a Los Angeles fan, it's a little bit closer for me than it is for most. I'm just be honest with you. But I still got MJ on top, and for obvious reasons, no need to really deep dive into that. But uh, yeah, top five all time NBA shooting guards. And we pretty much had the same list other than Clyde and James Harden, but I definitely see where you're coming from. Man, let's get to the part of the show that's been winning me money all year. Make sure you get it right this weekend, BK. Don't wait till you get to the finish to start screwing up. You got this, okay? Bring it home, my guy.
Whew, feeling pressure.
This is
No,
the
just kidding. There's
no
I,
pressure
I'm no
or anything.
I'm no Coach Dave. We're gonna get it done and get you some money. So um so
BK's best bets. What we got?
so in college, I mentioned a few games that I left off during one segment. My three college best bets this week. I saw Texas play Georgia. We all did. And what happened? An angry dogs team manhandled the Longhorns at the line of scrimmage, and they were in the backfield the whole game. The dogs are now playing a de facto home game in Atlanta against Texas in a rematch. Give me the dogs plus 3.5 points. Georgia's going to win that game again. And by the way, a little side note, watch for this. Star quarterback of Texas, Quinn Ewers, he's been battling injury throughout the year. He hasn't looked right ever since he's returned. The team keeps winning because they're so good, but I think that comes to an end this week. He's going to get hit early and often. I like Georgia to win that game. The other two, quack, quack, the Ducks. Give me the Ducks -3 over Penn State. When has Penn State won a big game against a highly ranked team? I'll wait. Do you really think this is going to be the time? No. The Ducks are going to finish. They're going to win the Big Ten in their first year in the conference. They're the most talented, complete team in college football. They are beatable, but not by Penn State. Give me the Ducks -3. They'll be the top seed in the college football playoffs. And last but not least, would you expect me to say anything different when I've been singing their praises for 2 months now? Give me the ponies in SMU -2.5 over Clemson. Remember, I've seen Clemson play against Louisville. They got boat raced at home by the Cards. They lost the game against Carolina they had no business losing. And Clemson lost another game earlier in the year that they had no business winning or losing either. So they've got 3 losses. Make that 4. SMU -2.5. The only reason why this spread is what it is 2 reasons. People keep thinking Clemson's Clemson, and
Yep.
people don't trust SMU.
Yep.
That's going to change come Saturday night in Charlotte. Those are the 3 best bets for college. In the NFL, very short and sweet. I like 2-team teaser, Steelers in a revenge game at home. They're a 6-point favorite over the Browns. The Steelers at home just need to win, move that to a money line. Browns, tough spot. Lost a tough Monday night game in Mile High in the altitude. Short week. Have to play the Steelers, who are out for revenge. The Steelers win. I like them. And the Eagles, they're a 12-point home favorite over the Panthers. I've been betting against the Panthers all year. Move that from -12 to -6. Give me the Eagles -6 at home. The Steelers to win money line. Again, dogs +3.5. SMU -2.5. The Ducks -3. Those are the BK best bets.
I'm sorry if I look distracted, but I ensure that I too jot down BK's best bets as he's putting them out there. I've tripled my money from my original investment this year. So, yeah. But here's the thing: I've been fiscally responsible in ensuring that I don't put too much on any given one. What normally ends up happening by the end of every season is I just say, "Yep, this is a gimme," and I put the whole thing on it, and the gimme don't give, and then I'm like, "See, this is why I don't bet." So I blame Vegas after I make a stupid decision. Is basically what I'm saying. All righty, can't miss weekly rants. BK, you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. It's going to be really quick. I talked about it earlier. Very simple. Ryan Day must go. Um, Listen, the expectations are the expectations. You can't lose four in a row to the team up north, especially as a 23-point favorite. You jettisoned last year's quarterback out, who, by the way, has been really good at Syracuse, for a mediocre quarterback who's underperformed and not even played as well as McCord, the guy you shit can. Here's the deal: the expectations are what they are. I don't care about 47-1. I care about 1-4. I care about no Big Ten titles. I care about no national titles. I need somebody that's going to get it done. The expectation is win or go home. No, this isn't the WNBA. This is college football. I need you to be better. He's proven he can't do it. He's had plenty of time to fix it. Get the hell out. Goodbye.
And we just see how things are going to work out with the college football committee before we say that it's going to be screwed up, or before we say that it's going to be right, or just can we just reserve our judgment for a couple weeks, just a couple weeks, to truly see what this thing is going to break down to? I've seen so many columns and so many posts on whether it be Facebook, IG, whatever the case may be, and people are pre-upset about their team not getting in, or somebody else's team getting in that shouldn't be getting in. I'm just like there's a lot that can happen after this weekend. Can we just attempt to just curb our enthusiasm just a little bit, and then from there, after things kind of hashes out, and also attempting not to use, you know, revisionist history after it's all said and done, and saying, "See, I told you that team shouldn't have been there." That doesn't work either. I think this year, more than anything, is going to be a test of whether or not 12 makes sense. We're never going to put the toothpaste back in the tube going back to 4 or anything under 12. But I do believe that in the near future, we'll probably be at 16. So just let it all flush out a little bit. College football has been around since forever. This is the first year that this is happening. Show a little bit of grace. That's I'm talking to you and to me, because depending on who get in and who doesn't, there'll probably be another rank. That's just kind of where I am, and that pretty much wraps it up for this week. We'll be back to you again on next Wednesday with the weekend recap. But for this evening, we are out. And remember, always tell the truth.
And nothing but the truth.
Later, y'all.